Well, please help me once again thank Senator Hagerty for his welcome to Nashville and to Tennessee and for his support of public power. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our fearless leader to discuss public power challenges and opportunities. Joy Ditto became APPA's president and CEO in January of 2020. And before that, she was president and CEO of the Utilities Technology Council, a global trade association representing electric, gas, and water utilities with their mission-critical information and communications technologies. Before joining UTC, Joy was with APPA for 15 years, rounding out her tenure as the Senior Vice President for Legislative and Political Affairs. It has been an honor and privilege to get to work with Joy as board chair this past year. Joy is smart, she's well-spoken, she's energetic, and dedicated to advancing and protecting public power. We're very fortunate to have her leadership at the helm of APPA. Please join me in welcoming Joy Ditto.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Colin. Thank you so much to Senator Hagerty for taking time to be with us today, as well as to join our Power Pack reception last night. That's an amazing commitment from him, and appreciate the Tennessee folks for helping to make that happen. Well, welcome to Nashville as well, or Nash Vegas, as I used to call it when I was a student down the road at Vanderbilt University. I know you'll enjoy your stay. Even when I lived here 30 years ago, this town had amazing food, culture, and of course, music of all kinds, as you heard last night at our welcome reception. This town in the heart of the Tennessee Valley exemplifies the public power spirit, one of community focus, excellent customer service, support for economic development, and sustainability. But what really makes towns like Nashville and the over 2,000 public power communities nationwide thrive is the people who work every day to help keep the lights on. People like Colin Hansen, our board chair for the last year, who lived in the public town of McPherson, Kansas for over 20 years and has spent his career in public power, especially focused on supporting the work of small utilities. In his role as APPA chair, Colin highlighted the work of smaller utilities this past year as well, what they contribute to the industry and what we can learn from them. You're an inspirational leader, Colin, and I look forward to seeing how you'll continue to contribute to public power in your new role as CEO of the Kansas Power Pool. People like Joe Brown of TVA, a longtime dedicated line worker who lost his life recently on the job, working around live electricity and climbing poles to restore or maintain critical infrastructure, continues to be an extraordinarily dangerous profession. It's why we're so focused on safety and will redouble our efforts to avoid injury or loss of life in this essential profession. But that small comfort to Mr. Brown's loved ones. I am so sorry for your loss. As we reflect on the people who've dedicated their work and in some cases their lives on behalf of public power, I want to congratulate the incomparable DeCosta Jenkins, or DJ, on his tremendous work as leader of the Nashville Electric Service for 18 years and his very recent retirement. Congratulations as well to his replacement, Teresa Broyles-Applin, who is also NES's first female CEO. DJ entrusted me with my role when he was board chair, and I'm eternally grateful. And you know, DJ, you can check out of public power, but you can never leave. Thank you also to NES for being the host utility this year, and also to the Local Arrangements Committee led by APPA board member-elect and executive director of the Tennessee Municipal Electric Power Association, Brian Soulsby. The committee's incredible work has helped us up our game with this conference, as have our vendor members and sponsors, including TVA. We also appreciate TVA President and CEO Jeff Lyash being here this week. TVA is helping to support this marquee event financially as well. Their commitment is so appreciated. I also wanted to thank Mark Kimball and his team at Gallatin Department of Electricity down the road, who hosted one of the elements of the APPA Day of Giving on Friday. It was fantastic, and they gave us a great tour. A final thank you to all the APPA staff who are continuing to work hard on site and back at home base to ensure you have a memorable and worthwhile experience here at the National Conference. I especially want to highlight Ursula Shriver, Monique McCaw, Leanne Sinclair, and their teams who provide the backbone for this conference. All APPA staff work on it, but they do a lot of the work to support it as well, and I want to highlight their efforts. And while we're on the subject of thank yous, I want to thank the Ukrainian people for their perseverance in standing up to tyranny and evil. And I want to send our heartfelt and ongoing thoughts and prayers to them as they continue to fight for their freedom. Having studied history at Vandy, I credit the Tennessee Valley as a major player in helping shape how public power has grown and evolved over the last century. The formation of the Tennessee Valley Authority in 1933 helped to usher in a new quality of life for the residents of cities and small towns throughout the region and enabled community ownership to shine. From 1933 to 1944, more than 300 public power utilities were formed, with 80 starting right here in the region. More than half of all the public power utilities established in 1939, a record year with almost 70 utilities formed, were within the Tennessee Valley. In the more than 80 years that have since passed, electric utilities have made significant advances, building out the nationwide interconnected grids, making new forms of electric generation possible and more efficient, and enhancing electrical safety for workers and residents. Today, TVA is again partnering with public power local distribution companies here to showcase how public, not-for-profit electric service can benefit our communities by providing the highest reliability that attracts and keeps businesses running, affordable pricing that alleviates the burden on families in paying their bills, and by navigating the latest energy transition in their own ways. Over the next few days, you'll have the opportunity to hear more about their work, including tomorrow morning's general session with TVA's CEO, Jeff Lyash, where he will discuss exciting initiatives with public power utilities throughout the Valley, helping make this region into a hub for economic development activity and sustainability. We've all heard again and again that we're in a time of major transition in our industry. And with that transition comes both challenges and opportunities. I've spoken about my take on these challenges and opportunities as I've visited many public power groups in person over the last year, and we'll expand upon those conversations here today. Looking back at public power's history, we've navigated significant change many times before, and those successes can inform our future. Building out our electric infrastructure in the first place was an immense challenge, but we did it. It took time, coordination, and significant investment, but we played a major part in bringing electricity to almost every U.S. state and territory from coast to coast, and many places in between. It took many years to get from the early founding of electric utilities to integrating ourselves into these major interconnections, at least for the continental U.S. and parts of Canada and Mexico. It took 50 years from when cities first lit up their streets to when the concept of forming major national-scale grids was formalized, and then decades more to actually build those interconnections and extend lines into many rural and remote areas of the country. The U.S. National Academy of Engineering named the formation of the North American electric grids as the leading engineering development of the 20th century. Think about that for a second. Getting to this point was not easy, and in some ways is ongoing. We continue to work on connecting families to the grid through the Light Up Navajo initiative, which you heard about from Colin, in partnership with the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. Thank you again to those who have volunteered their time, skills, and resources to this initiative. Having visited the Navajo Nation for the kickoff of this year's Light Up Navajo 3 event in April, I felt the gratitude for what our shared efforts could produce, how much of a difference electricity still means to people's lives, shines through in testimonials from the volunteer crews and the families that newly received power to their homes. The 13 crews that paired up with NTUA workers have electrified 126 homes this year. We won't stop until all of those in the Navajo Nation who want electricity can get it. As we face the ongoing challenge of connecting remote homesteads to our distribution grids, we must also continue to transition to a more modern, dynamic form of those grids. Like the challenges we faced for over 100 years, this will be an immense one, and we're already in the midst of getting it done. One aspect of this transition is the shift in generation to cleaner sources. We're undergoing this transition knowing that our long-term plans are subject to being reevaluated, questioned, and scrutinized as the policy winds change. Our communities, states, and the administration have put forth various expectations, rules, and regulations for us to navigate while still being expected to maintain affordable and reliable power. Public power utilities are no strangers to the push and pull of how these rules and regulations might affect our operations. Our true north of acting in the best interests of our communities has, in the long term, served as an example of how local accountability breeds good decisions. Still, we will continue to push for regulatory certainty in this area to reduce your community's risks of uneconomic or unreliable power, outcomes that could take us backward instead of moving us forward. A major challenge you continue to face is in permitting and siting any type of generation, whether newer or more traditional forms. For example, public power has a long history of hydropower generation, especially here in the Tennessee Valley. This history has brought us through figuring out how to harness and develop these resources in the first place, how to minimize any effects of this generation on wildlife and surrounding ecosystems, and how to responsibly incorporate these resources into our generating mix in times of drought and constraint. Maintaining and enhancing hydropower as a generating resource will be critical to ensuring reliable power now and into the future. And while challenges to the relicensing process remain, incentives in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act present opportunities for hydropower production and improvements. Keeping a reliable system based on cleaner power sources also means we have to develop advanced nuclear and maintain our existing nuclear fleet. TVA, with the support of the local public power distribution companies, has long been a leader on nuclear power, and they're looking to do more. Having recently received board authorization for a new nuclear program to explore advanced nuclear technology in support of their climate change goal. Several of your colleagues in the West, UAMPS, and Energy Northwest, among others, have begun to explore how advanced nuclear technologies can be viable and how public power can mitigate risk in the development process. The challenges here include educating our communities and policymakers about the promises of these technologies. Another is walking the fine line between innovation and risk. We're still fighting for tax-based incentives for clean energy, including other newer generation sources like wind and solar, to be expanded to allow for nonprofit utilities, public power, and our cooperative colleagues to receive comparable financial incentives in directly owning these projects. This has been a long time goal, and we've had some fits and starts, and we've had incentives put in place before, but they weren't workable. But there does appear to be bipartisan support for extending us these energy tax credits in the form of a refundable direct pay credit. And we're going to continue to push very hard on this issue on your behalf, especially as we go into later in the year and the midterm elections. In addition to funding through the Infrastructure Act, Public Power received a win in the form of APPA's cooperative agreement with the Department of Energy, with funding to convene a group to discuss how we can collectively navigate the transition to clean energy. I look forward to what that group puts forth that can help you all. I'm also interested in how public power can continue the discussion on a workable transition to cleaner energy. Our journeys to cleaner energy are also challenged by the interdependencies inherent to the industry. Unfortunately, Sometimes we can't work on challenges that stem from these dependencies until people see the true need. One clear example was Winter Storm Uri last year. APPA had outlined some issues with increased reliance on natural gas for electricity production back in 2010. But it wasn't until the storm triggered some of the worst-case scenarios that people started to focus on some of the policy solutions we'd previously put forth. We've made some progress in this area, but we still need to work toward getting assurances in the gas market via policy-based solutions. Rising natural gas prices over the last several months are only exacerbated by infrastructure siting barriers and contradictory policies that delay permitting. Uri was just one of many extreme weather events and disasters with which you and your communities have had to contend. When we talk about transition of the grids, it's not just about clean energy and emissions. It's also about being ready to withstand and bounce back quickly from major weather events or other events impacting the grid. Fortunately, utilities are not left on their own to recover. In addition to new funding allocated through the Infrastructure Act for utilities to build resilient assets, public power utilities will be able to benefit from another cooperative agreement between APPA and the Department of Energy that seeks to enhance the mutual aid process and other coordination efforts on resilience. Weather events are not the only threat to our resilient system. Modernizing our grids continues to present challenges to how public power utilities can secure the resources needed to deploy new technologies, especially digital resources. Public power has a strong history of pioneering new ideas and technology, as evidenced by the 40-year-plus history of our research and development program, DEED, which has awarded nearly $24 million to more than 630 R&D projects and scholarships to close to 400 students. As public power, one of our founding principles was to bring electricity to people who wouldn't have had it otherwise. I know you continue to consider service to all a priority. In a similar vein, new and innovative technology must get to all communities, not just some communities. More than 70% of all electric customers now have advanced metering infrastructure. But for public power customers, that figure is just above 50%. We know new technology is expensive to implement and requires ongoing updates. But we can't leave our communities behind, just as we didn't allow them to be left behind in the Valley or in other economically challenged or small communities across the country. I encourage you to talk to your peers here and see how various deployments have helped them attract new business, from small enterprises to big industries, and boosted the quality of life for their residents. I know this is easier said than done, but we're here to help you, whether that's in coming up with the messaging and materials that can help you get support of these ideas from your board or your community, or providing assistance in identifying the various available funding opportunities, or in developing and carrying out the R&D projects to pilot such activities. We're also working to facilitate your technology decision-making, reducing the challenge of being able to deploy technology in relatively quick timeframes. With increased technology comes increased cybersecurity complexity. APPA and the electric sector are keeping cybersecurity front and center in 2022, and we have been for many years. We're engaged with our federal government and industry partners to meet the challenge collectively. New reporting legislation that just passed and is being implemented now will impact the sector overall and means you'll need to be more engaged in keeping an eye out for the latest threats. Utilities can't do this alone. We must take a collective defense approach. Fortunately, you have the opportunity to engage in information sharing, cyber mutual aid, and more. The Infrastructure Act that I've referenced many times now includes $2 billion for cybersecurity, and there's $250 million of that $2 billion earmarked for technical assistance and support specifically for municipal and rural utilities. So I encourage you to explore applying for this funding. Last year and continuing in the near future, you've had to shift your thinking about the supply chain from, is it secure from cyber attacks, to where are the gaps in your fundamental equipment needs. As you come across supply chain challenges, we want to hear from you so we can relay these issues to our federal partners and discuss how we can alleviate any critical burdens on the sector. Thanks to your responses to our surveys and other outreach, we already know that transformers are extremely constrained, and I'm glad to hear Senator Hagerty is very aware of it too. We've done several things from our end to help. We've asked for a temporary waiver from the 2016 Transformer Efficiency Standard to help spur faster manufacturing processes. We've rolled out an additional feature on APPA's e-reliability tracker that's available to all public power utilities, and actually we're opening up to other utilities as well. And that allows for voluntary equipment sharing by matching systems with the same distribution voltages. I encourage you to take advantage of that platform. We're relaying to the federal government what the challenges are and working with manufacturers to better understand and alleviate their constraints. This conversation will become more formalized with a tiger team being formed between the electric sector and the Department of Energy, with transformer manufacturers and other manufacturers included as well. This tiger team is under the auspices of the Electricity Subsector Coordinating Council, which is led by the various electricity trade associations and select CEOs from the industry, including several from public power. We've also sent letters to the Congressional Energy Committees on the transformer constraint. In addition, APPA alerted the Department of Commerce to our concerns about the dearth of solar equipment due to tariff disputes among solar manufacturers. We appreciate recent acknowledgement from the administration on both of these issues. We're still figuring out exactly how they're going to tackle it in implementation of the President's order around the Defense Production Act. This significant challenge could be met with strong communication, collaboration, and sharing among ourselves, our electric sector colleagues, manufacturers, and the government. Electricity affects everyone, but most people have limited understanding of how the system even works. Our predecessors faced the challenge of first getting people to trust in the idea of using electricity, and then in making sure that everyone knew how to use it safely. Now, while most people no longer question whether they want to receive electric service to their homes, your community members are seeking a broader array of information about how they use their electricity, how it's generated, and whether they should consider investing in energy assets and electrification in their homes. Customers are paying more and more attention to their electricity, which brings added scrutiny and even legal challenges to your every decision at the utility. This comes at all angles, and not just from within your direct communities, but also from various companies and suppliers that have interests in the industry, including new and existing players trying to navigate what changes mean for them. We're simultaneously sometimes at odds and in partnership with some of these vendors, suppliers, and technology companies, trying to work with them to maintain an affordable, reliable, and future-focused system while clarifying their claims about how affordable or reliable their products are. Challenges also continue on the private equity and takeover front. As our industry remains poised for growth, those who would seek to profit from this growth are intentionally downplaying the value you offer your communities. At the same time, there are more platforms to get your messages across and educate the public when these types of threats arise. We must continually be positioning ourselves to tell our story so that these other players are not the only voices your customers hear. How we talk about the industry also impacts how well we can create our future leaders. Not just engineers or line workers, as important as those roles are and continue to be, but across the diverse array of roles that comprise the utility workforce. It also means considering how we need to be diversifying our skill sets, being able to embrace those who can help us better meet this transition. The continuing shift in how people are thinking about work and what they want out of work is also an opportunity for us to be thinking differently about our workforce. We have to pause and ask ourselves if we are appropriately emphasizing our values and mission within our open job descriptions and how we talk about our roles in our communities. We also have to reflect on whether our recruiting practices have been limiting the pool of talent that we draw from and what we can do to change that. Our opportunity to tell our story can and should stem from remembering who we are and why we're in the business of provisioning electricity. Because we are an essential service that underpins almost every aspect of modern life. As public power utilities, we're providing this service at cost, and in the communities where you all live and work, it's a powerful mission, pun intended. Public power utilities exist because society sees the value of community, providing what we need together. We have the opportunity to take advantage of immense financial investment in our future grids, thanks to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Public power utilities are directly eligible for more than $80 billion, billion with a B, in funding, spanning 15 programs from the Act. We have the opportunity to inspire and prepare our future workforce to tackle this transition head on. We have the opportunity to take part in making our grids even stronger by continuing to build on our alliances and using the growing array of tools at our disposal to coordinate on resilience and response. Through our association and developing partnerships with both traditional and non-traditional partners, we have the opportunity to leverage our collective knowledge and resources to guide us all through the many aspects of this time of transformation. Because of your ongoing commitment to excellence, we have the opportunity to showcase how public power continues to be the best choice for our communities in this transition. My stepfather, retired Navy Captain Jerry Coffey, who at the APPA conference in Minneapolis in 2015 spoke about his experiences as a POW in Vietnam for 7 years, passed away this past November. Jerry was born and raised in Modesto, California, a proud public power town, became a naval aviator, took key pictures from his reconnaissance jet during the Cuban Missile Crisis, then got shot down over Vietnam in 1966. When he returned to the United States in 1973, his youngest son, whom he had never met, was 7 years old. He came back and did many things to inspire other people and give them hope. He wore a Mickey Mouse watch every day, a watch his youngest son, Jerry Jr., now wears, to remind him not to take himself too seriously and to maintain a childlike sense of humor and wonder in whatever circumstance he found himself. In that vein, he tried many new things and rarely said no to any experience or challenge, calling it the code of experience. Even when his health was failing, he wanted to be in the mix of whatever was happening. So as we collectively seek to meet the challenges and embrace the opportunities of public power's future, let's do so with fortitude, humor, perseverance, and with our mission always at the forefront, providing reliable, affordable, sustainable power to our communities with incredible customer service, keeping our feet on the ground and reaching for the stars, to paraphrase Casey Kasem. This is the public power code of experience. Thanks again to our host, NES, Brian Soulsby, and the Local Arrangements Committee, TVA, and my APPA staff team for putting together a fantastic conference that I hope you'll enjoy tremendously. And enjoy your time in Nash Vegas. Thank you.